Welcome to the workshop meeting of the Kaufman County Commissioners Court. Appreciate you being here this morning, and we have 3 items that we'll be discussing here just in a moment. I wanted to make you aware that we posted another agenda on our website, and I made copies this morning. If the weather forecast is complete for Monday, or correct for Monday, there is a possibility we may not be at work because of the possibility of sleet. Now, we all know that can change dramatically over the weekend, but we'll post it immediately, and we'll get our, if something does happen, we'll notify everybody that if we're not able to meet Monday. But if we do not meet Monday, we'll move this meeting to Tuesday. And then if for some reason we're not able to meet on Tuesday, we'll meet on Wednesday, because we do have important business that we do need to conduct as a part of this month's last meeting. We do have some items on the agenda. We have 3 major items on the agenda that we'll be discussing in just a moment. But I think before we start this morning, Jakey, would you mind opening us with a word of prayer, and let's stand for it.
Father, we thank you just for allowing us to be in such a free country where we can live and do the things that we do. And we pray that you give us the wisdom we need when we govern the citizens of this county to make the best decisions that we know with the information that we have. And we know that you'll always guide us if we always turn to you for your guidance. Bless us and all the people that are here and those who are fighting on the front. Protect them that they can come home to their families also. In your son's name.
Thank you very much. First item on the workshop, well, let's see if anybody wishes to address it before we start. Jimmy, I think there is. Yes, if you'd like to address the court, now that'll be the time to do so.
Can we get 2 times?
Well, I think we try to do it all at once.
No, we won't allow to.
The ACT,
I want to say that I went to the Capitol the last 2 or 3 days, and I did a lot of work trying to find out about this money that everybody's talking about, that 911 has really working the trust fund. That money does exist. It is real. I've even talked to some other leaders, and they said they also know about it. The controller, his office, they've been contacted. They've got a quarterback and Ben Hager on it too. They know about it. Our district rep, Dr. Spitzer, and our district senator, Mr. Hall, their staff are both communicating to find out where it is, how much it is, and how they can get language drafted to try to get it back to, well, not just our county, but other counties as well. It's in a trust, and to get it back, they have to, what Boone Hager says, they have to draft language to get him to be able to disperse it back. Now, there was no indication what we could use that money for, and I'm sure we're going to find out as we discuss further this morning. 911 and emergency dispatch, 2 separate animals, and we don't know if that money is going to be able to be used for one or the other, or both. But it's not a myth, it does exist.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Okay. And that's the reason we have Mike Eastland, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the North Central Texas Council of Government. That's why he's coming over today.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you hear those things and you say, but they're rumors a lot of times, you don't know if they're real or not. This one is actually, there's some substance to it, right. And they are working together to try to get it back.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll save my other part for later.
Okay, the next item, first item is to hear from Judge Wiley and John Long. Actually, we've got Rebecca here.
Yeah, Rebecca and I are better than John today. John's coming, he just ran into a little traffic in Dallas.
Talk about the information and training on the legal process of declaring county roads and adding the official road map. So we'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Commissioners and County Judge. This is just information. If there are specifics that you guys think, and we've talked about it informally, maybe even formally, hey, this isn't me, there is an open door to my office, as well as talking to Rebecca or John. We don't want anybody to feel like this is a gotcha game. Oh, you said this, I said that. We're gonna lay out an analysis of what we believe and what we have read and what the law is. If you still feel like there's a question, we'll walk through it again together, separately, because we're not here to embarrass anyone, and I'm not gathering information to prosecute anyone. So this is just information for you to know. You guys just came back from training, so you are aware of this. But it is kind of complicated, but Rebecca, because she's very savvy, has just broken these down in a slide. So let's just walk through the slides. And so it starts out creation, maintenance, and abandonment. And I love her next slide. She's got a little dot there on the county. You know, why do we care? And this presentation is for you guys. Why do y'all care? You look at the road system that we have here. We have almost 500 centerline miles of roads here in Kaufman County. And you gentlemen are responsible for all those roads. And that means that you are responsible to establish, change, and maintain that. Y'all know that better than I do, because you have citizens coming up to you all the time in Commissioner's Court and in your community complaining and talking about their roads. Roads are important and they're a big deal, so we thought it was worth a workshop to talk to you a little bit about that. You have the authority to make and enforce all reasonable and necessary roads and orders for the construction and maintenance of those roads. And I think that's important. And as I love blah, blah, blah. And if it's not enough, this is Rebecca's slide. Plus, everyone knows, that's Rebecca, I love that. That Kaufman County is God country. So that's, I mean, I love that. Blue bonnet season. Blue bonnet season. And the way that she set up the slide, I like it, because it says the Commissioner's Court authority, okay? Y'all have the authority to do what we just talked about, to maintain the roads, to establish the road. So what those little 4 bullets are underneath are what you don't have the authority to do. She wrote it like Commissioner Court authority. But you, John, what you don't is you don't have an individual commissioner cannot establish a road. Y'all know that. Y'all learned that this week. You've been over it. The county cannot maintain a private road, no matter how many good friends you have that come and say, hey, can you do this on my road? No. Answer no every time, okay? This is, 101 about roads for you guys. Y'all get this. County labor, materials, and equipment can't be used on a private road, and it's vital to have clear authority for maintenance on all roads in the county. So that's pretty clear. That's basic stuff. This is a team effort. And what that really means is that you have to, as a court, to bind the authority, as a court, you have to accept new roads or the donation material. So if individually someone comes to you, you have to bring that to the Commissioner's Court. So always think, and I'm not trying to make it dumb it down, but it helps me sometimes to think about it. If somebody's jamming you up for something, it's like, no, this is a Commissioner's Court. It has to be the whole court. You're a team. I love that. Daytona Sunday. Good stuff. How are county roads created? She had some really tacky roads in there, and I said, no, we'll put a pretty road in there. Let's look at the law. Okay, and let's keep it simple. There's 3 straightforward ways to know if or how a county road is created. Prescriptive easements, dedication, and statutes. We'll spend a little bit of time on statutory authority to create a road, because that's usually how it happens. Prescriptive easements, not so much, and prescriptive easements kind of put me in mind of the old adverse possession kind of language, the same kind of language. Prescriptive easement, we got a little prescription bond in case you can get it. Firstly, the county obtains a road through a prescriptive easement when the public has used the road for 10 years. So you've got an old path, but people have used it, and so it's in an open and adverse manner. They've taken it over. That doesn't make it a county road in and of itself, because you have to, the step 2, before maintaining that road, it has to be officially established as a county road by the team again. So all these slides go back. Just because you've got that easement, you have to then adopt it. And it gives you an example, because we're a county more than 50,000 people in our county, so it has to be a determination that the road has become a public road. Okay? The second is dedication. You've got a generous landowner. He wants to give you this land and make it a county road. Does he have title to do that? Does he really own that road? Is it express or implied offer? Does it serve a public purpose? No good if somebody give you a county road. Oh, I'll give you a county road. And then it goes goes right up to my house, that's a red flag. Don't take it. But it doesn't matter, because even if you're willing to do it, we go back to its acceptance by the county commissioner's court. This is what saves you guys when they come to you individually and they're talking to you about stuff. You go, okay, it'll have to be the commissioner's court, and we could name names that we want of different groups and citizens that have come before you several times, that individually as commissioners, you would love to adopt as a road. But when it comes to a vote at commissioner's court, it gets shot down. So you have to refer them back to, hey, it has to be accepted by the group. So just in case, I think Rebecca thinks that we're not very bright, that was the second way. She put 2 fingers up in the corner, just in case you didn't get it. Is there anything I missed on that, because you had some notes?
No, other than the fact that a lot of times it's done through subdivision plats,
Yeah.
and they'll say we dedicate, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in detail.
Yeah, we'll get that in a minute. And so the third way is statutory. And that's the one that most often we think about, and we've given you this section where you can look at it in the transportation code. And then Rebecca broke that out a little bit last night. She was overthinking about ways statutorily that you can, that applies in that. You want to talk about that, John, or Rebecca, because you made little notes?
I just put the 3 main ways that you can create a county road statutorily. One, under this general provision here, which goes with the entire court, and then second, underneath the subdivision and road assessment statute, which we'll talk about next. And then the last one, which we don't really deal with a lot, is eminent domain statute. But those are the 3 main ones that you find in Attorney General opinions over and over. But this one is going to be your main general authority to create a road.
So, do y'all have any questions about that? Because we treat it a little bit later. We want to move to substandard, we just call it subdivision. You said substandard, so I read what you said. Subdivision, let's talk about that, subdivision a little bit, and then we'll come back to that. Subdivisions, and she's got a little joke. How is it that you prove, if you want to do this under 253, election of property owners required? We've gone through this. Owners can be assessed for the initial fees, but after that, then the county has to be responsible for the roads. And those that follow Commissioner's Court know if certain situations that happen, that's the process, and that's how we walk through it. And then that's another thing that people have asked us questions about, we wanted to share it with you. The regulations, keep these things in mind, okay? So remember this, keep this in mind. Just because it's platted as a public road, it doesn't obligate the commissioners. I mean, just because a new subdivision comes in town and goes, oh, this is a county road, I said so. Acceptance of the plat doesn't necessarily mean that's acceptance of a road. It's separate acceptance by the commissioner's court. Go ahead, John.
Interject at this point. The thing to keep in mind is, and for example, there are different times in the last 6 months, and the new commissioners have seen this, where they accept plats, and if you think, oh my gosh, we need to go back and look at the plats, you actually do not. Because the way to think of it is each county road should be a separate agenda item. It should be a separate agenda item with a separate consideration to vote. So for example, there's a particular developer, very nice man, who has come before Commissioner's Court, had different plats, and you're now scratching your head thinking, have we accidentally created a bunch of county roads? You have not. You have not, until you go and there's a consideration of, I want this, and this road to be a county road. And which, let me leave you with this concept, you cannot accidentally create a county road. The same way, you can't create a county road, and I'm going to go because it's a good illustration, you can't create a county road just by doing some work on it. There was a speaker, several speakers recently, that have spoken about the road that is in Commissioner Brzozik's district. And one of the contentions has been, there's been work that's performed, county materials were used on this road, so therefore there's an argument it's a county road. There's actually no argument that it's a county road. That may be their argument, but it's not a legal argument. It would not be accepted. Furthermore, it was for consideration a number of times before Commissioner's Court. That's also no argument. It has to be done, it has to be passed. And then finally, the final thing along those things is that if it is your belief as a commissioner that you don't want to offer a particular road, you don't have to offer a particular road. The law does not require any of you to say, you know what, I want to expand the county roads in my system. And you may feel like you're not able to, that it's not appropriate, or for whatever reason, or you just can't think of a reason. You don't have to do that.
Right, and so that's where he hits the biggest one, is that separate acceptance is necessary, and that's why John added that it comes on as a separate item. Y'all got it, we're beating the dead horse, but a separate item on Commissioner's Court that you discussed. Go ahead, Rebecca. Maintenance, I love that, she's got that, you're talking about maintaining roads. So, what roads can you maintain? We're speaking to you as commissioners, and it would give you what the law says right there, under that section. And it's important to understand that the county's authority to spend public money to maintain a road that's included on this map. So what we talk about, we're going back to what roads can be maintained, and we're showing you the map of the roads. And what there was, they did, y'all did that study, isn't that the, there's a snapshot, what was that done?
Yeah, there's a GIS study.
Yeah.
Yeah. In connection with the redistricting several years ago.
And unfortunately, I can't actually fit the entire official county road map because it's in so many different sections, so this is just a snapshot of the precincts.
Yeah, and let's go back to what roads can be included. Roads can be included or claims the existence of public interest as a result of having continuously maintained the road, and we got a date there beginning before September 1st. It even explains what's continuous, so you don't have to think about what that means. Grading or other routine road maintenance beginning before 9/1/81. And the burden then is on the county to show this. And so this is how roads can be included in maintenance. These are how county roads are maintained. Individual commissioners' road reports, okay? That's important because it's interesting, when I became a DA, I get these commissioner road reports, and I go, what is this? So I had to go look it up. I'm like, why am I taking this down to the grand jury, okay? So it's important you understand it is a document that's a sworn report, which means you provided your oath. That can have consequences because it's a sworn report. It's presented to the grand jury, and we do that not because it's our lease rules, because that's what the statute sets out. So we've got this, and also, but it's good to remember, if you fail to include a road on that road report, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily not a county road. Sometimes it can be an oversight on someone's part. And by the same token, just because it's on the road report doesn't mean it's a county road either, because we've already told you what makes a road a county road. That's an obligation that you have, that the statute requires. Okay? And so here's just some things we pulled out, a real quick refresher on the commissioner's authority. Individual commissioners have no authority to establish a county road. Always remember, it goes back to the teamwork. That's just something that we want to share with you. No private roads can be maintained. That's an old case, but that's still good law, and that's what the standard is. If you don't like the case law, okay, here's some attorney general opinions. County labor, materials, and equipment cannot be used on private property, and it's vital to have clear authority to maintain on all roads in the county inventory. And the reason we really wanted to kind of come in and talk to you is we had sent a letter out outlining, but when I looked at the letter and we talked about it among the three of us, it was a lot of legalese. So we thought, let's just break it down to something that makes more sense to everybody every day trying to decide how we do this, since this becomes one of your bigger problems and issues that come before you. How do you abandon? Commissioner's Court may, by order, cease public maintenance of a road. There's no statutory requirements, but John would probably tell you it'd be good to have that on the Commissioner's Court agenda, and that should be something that should be noticed, public notice, and something you should do in case anybody in the community wanted to come forward and say, hey, we don't want to do that, or other commissioners. You don't have to by statute, but we're recommending that if you abandon a road.
It also requires unanimous vote.
And it gives a little considerations, and that was the thing we were talking about. A property owner may not enjoy enclosure unless he owns property which abuts. Road being closed provides the only access to his property. So these are some things that would be brought up about things to consider if you were closing. Others may seek damage arising from closure but not injunction, and we give you the statutes there. So those are things to consider, and John just put the big tag on it. This is a unanimous vote.
Yes, now abandonment is separate from closing.
Yes.
And cases and AG opinions mix it up. Both require a unanimous vote. The only thing that is not in the configuration of roads of stopping roads is to discontinue a road discontinue a road, you must provide for another means at the same time.
And,
Go to the data box.
and we don't know,
That's rare.
yeah, well, you know, you don't know, you just have to say that since for most votes, it's just a majority, that the statute is sending a signal that this is important for us to abandon or close a road for the community, so that's why it takes everybody. I mean, it's just a reasonable inference from that.
And one of the reasons I included the last slide was because of the issue that we've had presently in the Commissioners Court, about when, we were having a public hearing and making sure that we noticed it correctly. So even though it's not required under the statute, because of all these things that may come up down the road, maybe facing an injunction or any type of damages, from someone that's may not be able to have the same property value, these are considerations I threw in there to remind us why that public notice is so important and why it's done properly, even though it's not required.
It's a great time for questions, that's the next slide.
By others, do you mean other property owners along that road or anybody
Yes.
in the county?
Other property owners along that road, but who are not in the section that has actually been closed or
Like if
abandoned.
you close the road in the center and
People
somebody on the
down
part
either-
that's still open?
Those are the people that have standing.
But what you're asking
They
is
would
just
have the ability
anybody-
to file a lawsuit to enjoin the actions of Commissioner's Court. Other people in the community may have a general, it's a good idea, it's a bad idea.
Yeah, and can show up.
Those people in particular.
But they have no influence?
They have no legal standing to bring a lawsuit. The other people just come
They
and
would
visit with
have
them.
no legal standing. The people that live on the first half of the road,
Yes.
that's not gonna affect, like say to the,
Jimmy, I cut you off. Ask the question again so I make sure we have the right answer.
okay, say you have a road a mile long, you're gonna close the last half of a mile. Somebody bought property on both sides of it, so now they own to the center of the road. Okay, the first half mile, the property owners say, no, we can't get out because that road used to continue to another road. So that's gonna devalue my property if you have to go all the way around to get to town or whatever. So anybody on that first half mile can file for damages.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there
Well,
is.
I
I think part of it, one of them, you know, if everybody knows that Lake Ray Overdrive is what you're kind of referring to. One, you have a body of water that the property owner on both sides does not own. So the people on the
he
first part
said
of
that they
the,
do not own.
so the people on the first part of the road is going to the body of water. The guy that owns both sides doesn't get the authority to close the road because there's no other way to get to this water, except down the road that we already have.
Well, and we've discussed that probably without, you know, and I mean, I don't mind discussing it publicly, that is a little different than what you're saying.
Well, I mean, in a sense, yeah, but in this case, we actually have a third party, which is the water. Whether it's owned by the city of Dallas or whoever, it makes no difference. Everybody's going down to their fishing hole. That's a public property. So that's where it gets hard to crow. I mean, I know just from federal law, where I happen to go hunting in Colorado, it goes by the logging road. So it goes through 9 miles of private property on both sides. For 40 years now, the people have been trying to close the road. They can't because it gets to a national forest. You know, so it's going to that extra part of the property.
Well, that's one good thing, that you don't have a national park on there.
But we got roads like that.
I'm
in
sorry,
Kaufman County.
just a second, let's jump in.
Let me address this for a second, and you raised a very good point, because that's still an extraordinary thing. And what that means is that the people that are going to stand in the claim to challenge it is a large number. It would be people on the south part and also on the northern part. And so that you don't understand it, speaking for anyone, the people on the north part would like to see, and people on the south part may or may not, but all of them would have a right to go before one of the district judges here and say, don't do it. A decision not to even take any action is your decision. And no one can force you to make a decision on that. So it makes more economic sense, or it's a smart decision, whatever.
And you don't even have to bring that.
And the law cannot require you to do that. And even if you did something, that would,
Does that help? You knew that, Tom. Yeah.
I
Now-
understand it, I just.
You just know what,
Talking about it.
yeah, yeah.
But you're right, in that particular situation, there's more parties, and there's more potential people that can file.
Yeah, that, it doesn't have any bearing on the land, but they're actually going to the third part.
Mhm.
And that happens to be the only way to their access,
Mhm.
to be there.
Interesting.
Other questions?
Well, I didn't know if you were taking.
No, I was just gonna, we had that very same situation happen in Kaufman County a few years ago. Exactly. That was getting in and out of the gravel pits and field down.
We really want to make sure that the commissioners who have the responsibility of the roads, and I appreciate Mr. Weaver's input, because it's enlightening, because he's had a similar situation, but you guys are the ones responsible. It's pretty straightforward, and if you have individual questions, we'd really appreciate you stopping by. We'll talk to you about it and clear it up.
You know, the only kind of question I have, I don't know any that's not, but like on the road report, you bring up the road report and you say road on the road report. If they're on the road report and a new commissioner comes in, and that's the guideline he's kind of using, how would he know if it was or wasn't? It's been on the road report for 20 years. What if it's not? But
Well-
at this point, isn't it, I mean, in some instances.
Goes back to one thing that
1981,
1981 rule.
or 20 years isn't 1981, we're past 1981.
Right, the county map would be, very good.
Well, I know,
Baseline.
that's one thing we have done, I give it to Steve, you know, he got after the maps and, you know, cause I got after him a little bit, and he got after them, and so that we could see all the roads, and actually see them on the map, and I could compare my road maps, my road reports to his maps, and make sense to me.
Right, and then once you, and then you go through that, and you compare them, and let's just say that for an oversight, that road had never been accepted by the commissioner.
Right, you
Didn't
can
fit the-
accept it.
Yeah, just bring it into court,
No,
accept
no.
it, clean it up, yeah.
Yeah.
We're just saying we want you to do that so that there's no questions about it. Now, that is just the way it's supposed to be.
But short of doing that, how do you know? One is, you could do a possible search of the, or should be able to do a search of the commissioner's court records to see, has it been accepted at that point in time?
Well,
Probably play that.
yeah.
The second would be to search the district court records, to show either by declaratory judgment action, by condemnation action, that it had been taken.
But I guess my
That might be a
question,
little bit difficult too, a title company might be able to do that.
my question kind of was, it wasn't that I couldn't find out.
It's just a lot of work, that's a lot to do.
It's a lot of roads, a lot of work, and why would every new commissioner come in, why would he take his road report of 100 roads, 200 roads, and go and search every single court record or, what would be the purpose? You see what I'm saying?
Well, I can tell you.
That's where I'm coming from, it's not that I'm worried about not working on the road that's on the road report, it's just that, okay, I am, and now all of a sudden, somebody's claiming that I'm in trouble because I'm doing something wrong. Well, I'm not doing something wrong.
Here's a short answer that cuts your work by a large fraction. I'd start with everything that doesn't start with CR,
Okay.
and assume that that's Cropper Lake, the county road. And then I go to nouns.
Right.
And start down that list. And as you look at your road report, that's a subset of it. The CRs, I think you can feel very comfortable with them. And then if you go to the smaller set, you can go.
It'd be very hard to say that you intentionally were maintaining
That's all
a non-county road when that road has CR in front of it, like he's saying. And that's what you're looking at, is a person's best efforts in it. But if the road is named after, hypothetically, Phillips Road, you might wanna look at that. Yeah, because it's got a noun.
I don't have one, but.
I know you don't, that's why I used it as an example. You know what I'm saying? That's why you go to it, so it's really, when you get down to it, it's not that much. And what happens is, we've seen in Commissioner's Court, I don't come, we've got John and Rebecca here, but when we have citizens that come forward, their biggest complaint will be to dig out an arbitrary road and say, well, why are y'all fixing this road? You're not fixing it. So really, even though it may be a headache on the front end, you have to go back and say, I've accounted for this. All these county roads, all the ones that John says it has nouns, I've looked at it, and These roads have also, we can show the county roads, because we have a acceptance at the commissioner's court, or the judge declared it, or somebody donated, and we accepted. All these little checklists that y'all already know, you know these rules innately without the presentation, because you've done it. But we want you to make sure it's a refresher and to break down what we sent at the beginning of the year, so we're all on the same page.
What are we gonna do when we discover a road that's, it may be up to subdivision standards? It's been on the road report for many years, maybe more than the previous commissioner. And you find out that it was, like you said, it was never brought.
Let's bring it to
and
commissioner's
legally
court
accepted.
and get it accepted. That's what we do. That way we bring it and it's a clean road then.
And there's not a time limit on it.
Yeah.
So it's a
So it's
chance.
on the road report, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's been on his road report, which gives him reason to think. You know, particularly like he comes in, would be the thing. Jimmy came in, this is his
You got an
first
existing
term.
road report that's been.
And it's been on there on this existing report. He comes in and goes, well, that's there, but I've dug and done some homework, it's not there. Then he's gonna say, oh goodness, what'd I do? Put it, bring it down here and we'll fix it.
What if you have some really substandard roads that it's gonna cost a lot of money that have been on the road report for many years?
And you don't wanna bring it?
And well, it's gonna bring a huge cost to.
That may factor into your decision.
That may factor in your decision to even bring it here to get accepted. Now, what's the consequences? We've got a little bit, is the upset landowners.
You don't have a subdivision that may have been there for 15 or 20 years that the county's been maintaining.
But the,
It
but
was
the,
never brought into the legally.
but the good thing about rules are this, people may not like it, but if we apply it across the board with everybody, and you've gone and found one that doesn't, and you bring it up, then you're not picking on anybody, you're following the rules. They may not like it, but please, feel free to dump it on me, because this is what we're going to do, we're gonna comport with the law. So I don't have any problem with taking
Well,
it.
and I think the other message is, the purpose is that the road reports are not only accurate, but it doesn't become a conduit by which people say, well, gotcha, oh, I
Yeah.
found something that's not.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you're unsure, the longer path is, well, we could follow declaratory judgment, have it declared a county road. Citizens can do that. You as a commissioner can say, I'm not exactly positive, I don't have the application, but here's all the prerequisites.
Yeah.
Bring them before the commissioner's court. My guess is, unless it's outrageous, probably pass.
I have a developer who wants to shut part of a road and move it, but wants the county to give them that part of the existing county road. How do you do that?
That's a separate question.
Yeah.
Another time.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll visit about that. That's just, yeah, we'd be glad to, we got answers. I think we've taken time unless y'all, oh, you have a question?
Yeah, we're good, I have.
Oh, okay, I thought you were just fixing your
Keep
hand.
saying, Joe,
I thought you told me to go, I'm like, I'm wrapping it up, oh my God.
I have one more.
I think this is a good discussion, I think we can continue as long as it needs to. But, we go back to the roadmap that, we adopted, I believe, in 2007. John, I don't know whether you were here then or not, but we've always, since I've been here, called that the official roadmap. Is that correct?
Well, that's a treatment of it, yeah, yeah.
But then that wouldn't necessarily make it a county road if we accepted it as a map.
Well, no, I think it is, let's not split the hairs. If it's, and it's a county road, it's a county road, so everything, that's a great starting place, we have to keep digging. Okay.
Well, that was my point, because I think there was a law that required all the commissioners' court to go back at that time in 2007. And we hired a company to come in and help long before I was on the court, and develop this map and a list of roads that
Yes,
we've
sir.
probably all seen. So, and then there have been a few roads, not many, but maybe 15 or 20, that have been adopted by the entire commissioner's court since then. So I guess I just want to clarify in my own little finite mind.
I agree so far, little fine line.
Okay, fine. I appreciate that.
Okay, just want to agree.
Susie doesn't agree with that. But anyway, you got me off track now, so.
Did you just try to figure out that 07?
Yeah, is that the baseline?
Right.
that we were getting?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay.
It definitely is, and you can reference 258.002, and that's the county roadmap adoption statute. And then it also addresses in subsection G, your question about those roads, the 15 to 20 that have been since adopted. The failure to include any of those on the county map is fine, as long as that you can show that it was acquired by court's final judgment, by the commission, adoption by the commissioner court, condemnation, dedication, those ways that we show that there. So, I put in the slide, oops, you know, the county map's 10 years old.
Yeah.
I know there's been some, discussion on whether or not to update that. I think that would also be a good idea to help that problem be addressed.
Well, I think the official map, we have one in my office. I think the official map is kept by the county clerk. And the actual list of roads that were added since then. So that's probably something that maybe we do need to go back and revisit and see if.
But here's a question, how about if you had that map, okay, you have the map, and the roads, there's not a road on there, that you're now treating as a county road. But if you can show that it was an oversight, that there was a commissioner's court that accepted it before, with the whole commissioner's court, and it should be a road because it was accepted before, then it's a road. Even if it didn't make the official map, because with all the work that was done, there might have been one or two as an oversight. But you need to produce that acceptance by the body, not by the individual commissioner. That's all we're saying. So those rules, if they make it so easy, so again, Steve, it helps you with saying, oh my gosh, we're going to go through all these roads, and Jakey is a new commissioner. Start there. And then when you cross-check, you're going to have just a finite amount. And I think that'll help you.
And Jimmy, while ago, you said something about 1981.
Well, it's in the statute about how you can have a road.
If the
That's
road
been
was a road before
been
1981.
maintained
Yeah, it's been maintained.
and open to the public.
Okay. Good, I'll clear that up.
Early, can I say something?
Actually,
Judge, can I say something?
Well, let me tell you,
I would
I
say
like
Jimmy's.
workshops to be interactive with the court, and I've tried to run an open court and let the public participate. But I think at this point in time, based on what Early has advised me, this discussion really needs to be among the court members. Now, that doesn't mean at the end of the discussion that you can't discuss something with any of us.
Or if we take a break, we'll talk
Or
about
we
it.
can take a break in between and ask that up. But what I'd like to do right now is allow the Commissioners Court to ask any questions they have, and then we'll take a break and get ready for the next session, and maybe have time to come back.
Absolutely, if y'all want to. I'm not trying to close, but I don't want to apply one set and then Mr. Weaver had something and you
Yeah,
didn't sign it.
and the purpose is that we want to all leave here with good, correct information. I mean, that's been part of the problem we've had. We've not all had, maybe we've had the same information, but we didn't understand it the same way. So that's kind of what I want to do. But I think Ken or Skeet had a question or something like that.
Yeah, well, I still have one. So if I have a road and it's not on the map,
Yes, sir.
and it's not on the road report, but
Okay.
it's been being maintained,
Bring it up here.
bring it up here and add it to the court.
Yeah, well,
I mean-
let me be very clear, because sometimes, I mean, I speak in the vernacular, these guys can help me. Put it on the agenda to be adopted as a county road, and then you would bring it to your other people on the Commissioners Court and explain exactly what you did. This road has been maintained for over 20 years. It missed the 2007, it did this, we got 10 families that access it, and I want to continue to maintain it.
Yeah, I'm not.
As an example.
I'm not doing it at the moment.
No,
I mean,
but
because
I just made up a
I figured out it
hypothetical.
wasn't road, and I said, hey,
Yeah.
don't touch it.
Yeah, as a
Until
hypothetical.
we figure that.
And I think among the 5 of you guys, you will be able to get, it doesn't take 5, it's a majority, 3 of you.
No, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
You know,
Is there a
It's a
process?
Phillips road.
We're not joking, okay?
No, but I mean, you know,
I got you, it's a great question.
it's by name.
Is there not a process that we go through? Does our county engineer that we've designated, that they have to go inspect that road and make sure it's up to county standards?
Well, Commissioner Rizal did bring up a good point about a substandard road. How about if you had a road that wasn't up to county grade,
Right.
county standards? And again, what the problem is of having a road that's below county standards that we've designated as a county road, that somebody could go out there, that enhances liability. So that is yet another problem. I don't know if I answered the question.
Let me answer that. I'm gonna pat Shane on the back and say, my recent experience with his office is that they want the county engineer to look at roads before they even think about putting it on the agenda. I think that's a great idea. The law does not require that, but I think the question of, hey, how much money will this be? Which the rest of y'all might ask, it would be, I think, some reasonable diligence, to say, oh, it's going to cost $2,000, well, that's not bad, it's going to cost $200,000. Let's wait.
Well, I was under the
Isn't
impression.
that right, Commissioner? I think.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
seen some
that's
emails
my
from your
question,
office.
because what it does, it keeps us away from spending a whole lot of money on a bad situation.
Yeah.
Whereas if we have.
Just
an
because it's a
engineer,
good
we-
idea.
Well, I was under the impression that, go ahead, Ken, I'm sorry.
Well, that we all know what the value of the piece of property that the county's fixing to take in
Right.
is.
And that's something that you do pretty faithfully.
Bust the bank.
That's all.
Okay, well, I was under the impression that there was a requirement, that we did have to have the approval of the county engineer, which we've designated a firm, to visually inspect the road, which I think some of you have, and say, yeah, it's an acceptable road. If it's not an acceptable road, then the, homeowner or the group has to bring it up to standards.
I think that's only on subdivision.
Well,
I think it's
that'd
also
that'd be a good question at the court, could we make that rule?
You
mean-
you could make that rule. You
I
could
mean,
impose
is that a,
rule
is
on
that
yourself.
a lawful deal to say that what we wanna do
I mean,
is
it's an
not to let
clause.
another commissioner just bring it to us and say, spend his whole budget fixing somebody's road?
Absolutely, and it's a good idea, that's why I think, that John was patting Commissioner Shayla back, saying he has an engineer go out there on people that wanna bring in new roads, for example. But the same thing would be said that you guys as a group could say, we're gonna have the engineer. It also gives the citizens that are looking kind of a mechanism to know, okay, we're gonna have to do this to bring it up to this, and then we'll continue to maintain it after it's been accepted by commissioners.
All right, in that regard, if court, take both today, but in that regard, could somebody develop an order for us that says exactly that before we accept a body as a road, as a part of our county road system, that it has to be brought up to standards based on what the, county engineer says.
If that would be a prerequisite, that's a reasonable prerequisite, sure, that's part of the commissioner's court order.
I don't know if there needs to be anything else
Maybe
added.
got that.
Well, the wording is gonna be tricky, because if it's gonna have to be brought up to county subdivision standards, we all know what that is, that we will never gain another road, because nobody that lives on those roads is gonna pay the kind of money that it takes to
They're not gonna
bring a
put
road up to
concrete.
subdivision standards.
I agree, and I think we also, that's something, and we can talk about it until y'all don't want to, is something that is a little finite issue we can work on the language, but we don't wanna limit roads and for people, citizens in the county. So we can work on this, we need to give ourselves enough room to be able to maneuver.
Or you could even do it in a class category, you could say you could bring it up to a standard as a gravel road, so that we can only
Whatever, it's like,
maintain
yeah.
it
We'd have
as
to classify them.
Well, see, that's why I
gravel road,
actually
and
think.
one is a paved road, and one is a concrete road.
I think
And
y'all
whatever
need to-
standard they wanted to bring it up to, then we can maintain it at that same.
But y'all need to discuss.
Y'all need to
what
discuss
is
it
that-
and break it down, and then we'll clean it up and make it something a little more legal, but I don't
That
think we
makes
should
sense.
start.
But it's a
We like
preliminary
y'all to work
observation,
for it.
it's something to have the county engineer to have.
That's
another
right,
set of
well, that's
eyes
what we're doing,
to do
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And in fairness to the commissioners, they may not tell you anything different than what you know, but it feels very reassuring to know that it's been looked at and examined in that regard.
I have a sample that I can send. Look at you, such a gunner. You've been hired. Okay. Any other questions you are thinking of?
No, I was going to say something very quickly, just along those lines. One of the things that was referenced is the ability of citizens to buy the road, to buy the way in. And we've had two examples of that. There was one road that was discussed quite a bit the last few months, and the new commissioners may have recalled that discussion, and there are going to be letters going out, but that is a particular statute that allows for people to petition the court to make requests that they will pay the cost, and this was referenced on the side, that they will pay the cost, so ballots are sent out, the election is held, reports are made to Commissioner's Court, the Commissioner's Court makes a decision, are we going to accept that? In this particular case, from several years back, something that was in Commissioner Clark's, then Commissioner Clark's precinct, now in Commissioner Solik's precinct, decisions made to make those repairs. The repairs were made. The road was, I think, accepted as county road, but costs were not recovered, and so we're going to be in the process of doing that. A similar process began with another road that was in Commissioner Solik's that some of you have heard about in recent Commissioner's Court. And the distinction is, and that one, the ballots were sent out, they were received by the court, but the court did not vote to take action on it. It's not required to take action on it. It may be a little bit strange that it did not vote to receive that, but for whatever reason, it did not. And so as a result, it's not a county road. It's like the process began, no money was spent. So, and so,
I have a question right in there on that point.
Yes, sir.
If the development was, they didn't have a road, and now they wanna bring it up to standards, and they all petition and do the election, that still means that we do not have to take it, because for whatever reason we don't want to. They don't, it doesn't force authority to.
No,
us to have to
no,
take it.
if they go through the proper steps to have the petition, then they can have the ballots in there, and they can have the ballots counted and reported to the court. And the court can say, gee, there's an affirmative vote, or it's a tie vote, or whatever it may be. And that may be very persuasive to the court, or it may not be persuasive at all.
Totally your fault.
Yeah.
One other question, and this.
But Commissioner, that raises a good point. The citizens cannot, by their vote, make Commissioner's Court
Right, except for vote.
accept a road.
That's right.
That's, and the second one, and I understand the disappointment of the citizens in that case, but even an affirmative vote, or a unanimous vote of all the affected property owners did not create a burden, did not move the needle to have the court.
Right.
I would imagine perhaps in other cases it would.
Yeah. I agree.
Commissioner Shane and I talked recently about the infamous County Road 346, which is near the huge rock quarry out north of
Big gravel.
Yeah. Rock there, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And that road, and Ken help me here, that road has a fairly wide right of way for a county road. It really does, it's larger than usual. But there is a sharp curve where the trucks that come in and out of going back and forth through that rock pit have to turn. And so the landowner has indicated he will not donate the land to the county that, that we would have to condemn it. Yeah, and there is I think there's a statute you understood, take 60 feet of that without donation rights. Is that right?
A statute of what?
That we can take up to 60 feet to make any road in the county a road. If we
That's
so-
already a county.
Yeah, that's already a county road. If we so desire, we can't do that. And what it is, it comes to dead end stop, you have to make a hard 90, and so it's hard on the trucks. And we got a design back from TxDOT the other day. I finally got the design from TxDOT for this road. They have, offered a design 346 for us, and so anyway, and they've got the corner around it. So probably that might give you and us look at the design and then talk to the landowner. And I'm glad Judge brought this up.
I'm pretty sure the law states that the county can take whatever is reasonably necessary to maintain a road for the drainage. I don't know if it has a specific foot in there, footage.
Well, to the extent that there's more than a hard 90 degrees,
Yeah. It's
a
hard on.
lot of property, and so it may be, if the county agreement may be a combination, but I wouldn't defer. I mean, if the county needs it at some point, take it at that point.
Well, that's something we just need, before we jump out there and do anything, we want to make sure we have the authority to do so. Anybody else have any questions before we take a break? Thank you guys for this has been very helpful, and you want to say something?
I was just gonna say, I have all the presentation on slides, I can give it to you guys. All this material has come from different CLEs, 3 that I can think of. Right now, I can provide that for you, and then there's also an extra slide presentation in that packet, so I can get that to you guys.
If you ever wanna give it to anyone in your community that's dysmatic, you've got it already here, we can just push it right there.
Yeah, I didn't send it to you guys.
Assuming there was someone that's mad at me.
About this issue, assuming, no one's mad at y'all, I'm not.
Is there a possibility like that slide, do we have a way to, put that on our website?
I would
So that we
think so,
can-
that's what I was on suggesting.
That we can, if somebody calls us, we can say, hey, here it is.
Walk in, walk them through
Walk them
pretty
through it,
easy.
and tell them how to get to it, and they can see.
Most of it's
That
cited
would really
to
be, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, and when she pushed it to me in my email, it's a little bit with because of the pictures and the way, but you basically get the gist of it, so it's a really good thing to run through. And it's really
And
straightforward.
if anybody has any questions, they call you directly, is that correct?
If anybody has any questions, call me directly. Sure, I will refer them to their individual commissioner and their president. Yes, I will. That's great, no problem.
Sounds good.
Yeah, gotcha.
All right, and I know some of you had some questions, y'all mind?
No, I don't mind hanging here, I'm just gonna.
Let's take a quick break and then we'll start back with the second portion.
Lift it up. I didn't lift it.
Yeah, you're just
That's
a moment.
nice.
Again, remember, keep this as informal as we can. I think this first very helpful. And the next part of the workshop is to hear from Mike Eastman, who is the Executive Director of the North Central Texas Council of Governments. And I've asked Mr. Eastman to come this morning and make a visit to Kaufman County, bring us up to date on what all the North Central Texas Council of Governments does, where they get their authority, and the different divisions that is under the umbrella of that. And I think you'll be surprised about some of the things they do. I believe you have a handout.
Well, I will, and I might just hand it out at the end.
Okay, that way we'll be looking at it while we.
Well, I have found it sometime, yeah, we're like students, if we get the paper first, we start listening, or looking at that.
So we kind of talk loud, we have a nice crowd here
Yeah.
today, and so it'd be helpful to us. So, all right, go ahead.
First, Judge, Commissioners, thank you very much for the opportunity to come out and visit with you. Let me give you just a little bit of history on council of governments. The legislature in 1965 passed a law that enabled councils of governments to be created. But it took the cities and counties within an area designated by the governor to actually form the council of governments. So we are not a state agency. We are an association of governments that is local in nature. We aren't a government because we can't pass any laws. But we were created really to look at the long term of the region and what was going to be needed. And I think the federal government honestly, back in those days, saw some things that we weren't seeing. They knew the new airport was being looked at. And what they really wanted was to take Lyndon Johnson's Great Society and the different programs that were coming along with that and all the dollars that were going to be flowing back to local government, to make sure that there was a comprehensive look at that. They didn't want roads that didn't meet. They didn't want water lines that were undersized. They really wanted a long-range view of it. Of course, in the urban area, you don't know when you're in one city or the next today unless you have to recognize, hey, I think the color of the street nameplate changed on me. Driving out here again today just reminded me that it won't be long before you guys aren't just started out here like when I was assistant city manager in Richardson, we were away from Dallas, but today, plain old Richardson, all of those are all together. So there really is a need to look comprehensively at how we're growing and how we're preparing for that growth. The other part was work with your local governments to help them to cooperate, coordinate on activities that would eventually, and the whole goal behind it was, how does this save dollars for the taxpayer? Does it make sense to cooperate and coordinate? We've gotten into a lot of programs such as that. We are governed by a 13-member executive committee, soon to be 17, starting this June when we have new elections. We send out nomination forms to all of our member governments, and they can submit nominees to be considered. And we have about 235 members. So we can't be, every member has a member on the executive board. It'd be like putting this board with 235 members, would be hard in the state legislature. So what we really try to do is to make sure that our smaller counties, smaller cities, urban and rural, have a voice on the board. Medium size have a voice on the board. The larger folks have a voice on the board. But our overall number one goal is to never get into a zero-sum game, where somebody wins and somebody loses. All of our policies are really geared toward how do we make a win-win out of this. So we tell our members, if Kaufman County had a member of the board, which I think Wayne Gent was probably your last person on the board, back serving as president, but you're not just here representing Kaufman County. You're representing all the counties that are of size of Kaufman. To make sure that we consider what the needs are for our county of that size with these other counties besides Dallas or Sharon. What backs them up though and really brings a larger voice to our board are the various committees and steering committees we have. We do not have a program or a project that doesn't have a committee that actually helps design that program or project. And those are composed of elected officials, executives, cities, counties, a lot of times citizens. And that's really where the work is done. I kind of equate it to a legislative committee that really digs into subject matter and then takes it to the full legislature to be considered. I don't think we've ever had a situation where the executive would say, no, we're not going to do that committee is representing. They respect the fact of what we're doing. So we also get into a lot of long-range planning. I'm going to describe some of that to you. We do a lot of work on behalf of the state and the various state agencies, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. And I want to save some time for some questions from you, or if you want, even from attendees that you have here in the meeting today. One of the programs that we operate for the state is the aging program. We are designated as one, and by the way, there are 24 councils of governments in the state. We're one of those 24. We actually were the first to be created and are actually the largest by population size. And in Houston, we have followed us. But our area agency on aging is charged by the state within 14 of our counties to deliver services back to those who are of an age or have a disability that they're eligible for some of their programs. Your home delivered meals, your congregate meals, transportation services to get back and forth to doctor visits, to do what they need to have done, are all things that we have to oversee. In fact, this last year, we had about $123,000, almost $24,000 spent on serving 390 older adults here in Kaufman County. About 67,000 meals that are actually delivered to the home. Congregate meals, we spent about 158,000, 379 older adults, and some 26 or 27,000 goes there. Transportation, we reach about 78 folks here in Kaufman County. Bible service for some of those who just flat do not have family around or others to get them, particularly back and forth to clinics and that type of thing. We really gear this program toward saving dollars in two ways. One, we contract our service delivery to people here in the region. But we keep overhead and administrative costs for all of our 14 counties. And it seems the more that we cut dollars, the more they add on to the requirements that we have. We are constantly monitored, we're constantly being asked to do things, and if each county had to reproduce that level of service within their own county with their own people, you'd be talking about a whole lot more dollars being spent on just overhead and administrative expenses, which then takes away from what we're able to deliver to the folks that we're really trying to serve. The other way that we try to save dollars there is to keep people out of nursing homes, if at all possible. Either by delivering the home meals, helping them with doctor visits, helping them with legal problems, helping them with financial situations, where they can live an independent life, which I think all of us really want for so long as we're able to do that. We're trying to keep hospital admissions down, and particularly readmissions, because that's a very, very expensive thing on Medicaid and on both, and Medicare. And these services also help to do that, but we've got a lot of things that we do in that regard. All of this keeps costs down for our federal government and our state government if we can keep people out of the nursing homes. We put them into community housing where possible, where that's available. Like us, got cerebral palsy that we had at a nursing home. They said, you know, if you get her to into one of these living facilities with 3 or 4 other people, it's going to be better for her. She's going to be with people that she can communicate with, and it's going to cost a whole lot less dollars from the federal and the state government. So that's what the aging program is really geared to try to do. Through the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, we everybody that had a landfill had to pay a tipping fee to the state, as you're well aware. We don't get 50, we're entitled to get 50% back. The legislature never appropriates that full 50% of the funds. But here we're looking at how do we make sure we get to longer life of the landfill for as long as we can. And recycling, reuse are 2 ways you can do that. The other aspect of it is how do we stop illegal dumping? And we work very closely with our counties and cities in providing cameras and other enforcement mechanisms to try to help reduce that as much as is possible. Over the last years, the cities here have gotten about close to $775,000 of grants. Every year we don't get a grant request from everybody, and we have about 3 times more requests than we do dollars to actually put towards those requests. But certainly you guys and your cities have benefited from that program. Also, under the community development block grant, if you're not a city over 50,000, you work through the state. The governor has asked the council of government to serve to make sure when applications come in for those funds, that you have local committee people who are reviewing applications and making recommendations on how those are spent. We spend a lot of dollars on water, sewer, street repair, and other parts, lower income parts of our cities. And you guys have gotten about $2.5 million in the last few years that have been awarded through that process. And it really takes it out of the state, treating all the area of the state as a cookie cutter approach. Everything that fits this area because we are different. And it brings it down to a more manageable level. We can get input from the people who are really gonna have to be affected by these programs and getting to make the recommendations on things such as that. Workforce, we are assigned by the state again to be a workforce board, and we serve this county. We're located in Terrell with a workforce center. We served about 6,700 people last year in that center. We retrained 47 individuals that are costing about $126,000. People who were out of a job, needed training to go into a different job as the economy changes the way it has. We've gotten some special grants here for your Terrell Economic Development District and the Skills Development Grant at Trinity Valley Community College. That last one was about $500,000. And then we've worked with a whole lot of your employers here on job fairs that they've held, hiring events of different types. And this again brings down to the local level the control. And I haven't named the people who are on the various committees, but in this case, Kaufman Tidwell from the Terrell Economic Development serves on the board of our workforce program. In criminal justice, again, the governor has asked that the Council of Governments look at grant applications, whether it's women involved, whether it's children, whether it's other law enforcement type activities where grants are being asked. Pam Carter is on that, along with the Reverend Ernie Mikulski from the Kaufman Baptist Association. And over the years, whether regional victim assistant, law enforcement grants, you've had millions of dollars of grants that have been allocated back to not only government, but to a lot of your NGOs, your non-governmental organizations that deliver services, whether it's a women's center or a law enforcement activity. And I'm kind of running through this, but I know we got a time frame that we need to meet. 911, again, in 1987, a law was passed that created the 911 program and assigned the responsibility back to councils of government to implement that program on behalf of the areas that we serve. There were some larger cities and a few really large counties that already had a 911 program in operation. But once this 87 law was passed, it said in the future, these areas will be served by council of government. And the idea there was to bring dollars together in a large enough amount that you could really get out and start making some accomplishments in implementing 911. I will tell you that our organization is a leader in the state, is a leader nationally, and recognized such for the level of technology that we now have. We've got you on text. We hope in the next few years that the technology will advance to where you can actually stream video back to a 911 call center dispatch area, and people can see exactly what is going on. It can be done when the technology is coming, and we have a platform in place that will allow that to automatically occur once that technology does arrive. Just this past month, we have installed in Kaufman County the latest in Mount Alley, our automatic location identification, and more accurately, not only, of course, with the landlines, but the real challenge today is the mobile phones, and they're becoming the predominant way of communication now. And this is triangulating and getting technology that we can get closer and closer and closer to where that call is actually coming in. And again, we're leading the state and the national government on getting to this level of technology. So generally, or it is working well. We've been, I think, blessed in one sense that we've not had any problems of misidentification or call fail. And it is because we have great technology, but it's also because we have great call takers and great dispatchers in our various public safety advocate plans. And that's the other thing that we do. We have a training program for those call takers and the dispatchers to really help them be as familiar as they can with the equipment, know the best ways to get a call in and get it dispatched. We see, again, in the future, technology coming to where that call taker and the dispatcher will be able to see that call coming in, video streaming here, they can see the event, and it's really going to even enhance more the ability to get services out to the folks that are needing it. Just trying to think. The other thing that everybody knows that we do is we are assigned by, again, the state to the federal government to be the metropolitan planning organization, helping to determine with the state what transportation projects are going to be funded in the future. And again, our transportation area is recognized as a leader nationally and in the state. We have more projects going on because of some of the, I guess, thinking outside the box a little bit, the best way to describe it, than any other region in the whole United States. Because we have been able to bring funds together, mix and match funds. When a project's going to be ready, let's get that project going. Let's take some funds from one that's not gonna be ready for 3 or 4 years. Then we'll backfill that project when it really is ready to be implemented. And as a result, it has worked very, very well. Again, you guys have, we work with you on your bond program, we work with you on a lot of other areas. With Proposition 1 passing, we decided, let's not look at this in 1 year increments. Let's look at it over a period of 4 years. And what can we accomplish? And how do we stage those projects over 4 years? The state is now saying, you know, that's a good idea. We want everybody to approach it that way. But it looks like you're going to get around $34 million some for maintenance and some for projects improvement along 20 and in some other areas out of that. The state pretty insistent on we want projects ready to go done first. And that's really because the people did turn out and vote for it 80% across the state to approve Proposition 1, so they want to show some quick results. We agree with that, but what we don't want to do is just see a project done that really is not that significant because it's ready, and so that's why we want to look at the 4-year window. How can we make this really phase in and we get the biggest bang for the bucks? Out of that $1.7 billion, our region will get about $367 million this year. We anticipate with the oil and gas price decline that that's going to go down. And in the out years, we have really figured that into our computations that we probably won't get that $1.74 billion in the out years. It's going to be something less than that. But the last thing we want to do is get into projects and then not be able to carry them forward. So we're being very conservative in that area. Last thing I wanted to mention is in 1990, the federal government passed a new clean air law. The state has to implement. We really went to the state and said, we would rather you not just come down and tell us what we have to do. We'd rather make this a situation where our local elected officials, our business people have an opportunity to at least advise you and work with you as you're looking at the various types of control measures that you would put in place. So we can decide which ones that fit our region, which ones are easiest for us to implement, and the ones that we can get behind and help support. And they have been very good to allow us to participate in that. The problem is they keep lowering the threshold for what makes, how you can meet the standard. And we have just about used up, well, we have used up all the low-hanging fruit. In fact, I think you're gonna have to get more than a step ladder to figure out how we're gonna continue to get into compliance with the law, because we've gone from an 85 parts per billion standard, and we're now looking at somewhere in the 60 to 65 parts per billion. It's going to be very, very difficult for this area to achieve. But we've got 10 of our counties that have been designated by the EPA or through recommendation of the governor's office or TSEC to be in the non-attainment area. Wise County just got added to it 2 years ago. We were 9 counties, now we are 10. We have no regulatory authority in this at all. Ours is just simply trying to make sure again that you're going to be doing some things here. Let us have a voice in that. And, we've got about 18 monitors that are scattered throughout this 9-county, 10-county area. It's our monitors up in the northwest part of the region, Denton County, a little bit in Keller and Tarrant County are the monitors that exceed. You say, boy, I didn't realize that. And Keller would be that dirty. Well, they aren't. The wind blows out southeast and to the northwest, so it starts picking up pollutants way before it gets into our 10-county area. But by the time it really gets a chance to stop and rest, it's up in that part. That's why those monitors are going off, but we all contribute to it, through our cars, through various industries and the things that we have here. So I think it's very unfortunate the federal government is now getting the standard so tight that it doesn't make sense, but they don't ask us if we think it makes sense or not. They have a science committee that's in the law that was passed with the Clean Air Act. It says you're going to look at this every 5 years, and they're going to recommend what they think the standards should be based on that. So it makes it very, very difficult, but we all have to work together to get those type of things accomplished. Just quick ending, we are working with a lot of our cities, in particular on joint projects, everything, technology. We got an electronic warrant project going on now that somebody in Terrell had a warrant for a Terrell arrest, and at this time it's just Class C, so it is mostly city. But get stopped in Kaufman, find out they got a warrant. Today you would take them to jail. Terrell will have to come over and pick up their person. Take them back, that takes an officer off the street. A lot of paperwork involved. We now have a way that if that person goes to Kaufman jail, they get out a credit card, pay off their warrant to Terrell. No money changes hands, it automatically goes to Terrell's account, so Kaufman and Terrell don't have to square up at the end of it. So we're doing a lot of things like that and want to continue to do it because it just helps our cities to be more effective and more efficient. And that's really what we're about, is how do we take these programs that we do have, get local influence, local determination in how the project's going to go forward, and then design it such to be at the most, probably at the lowest cost. I came out of city management, we don't always have the best reputations, but I think most of us really do try to figure out how can we deliver services at the least cost possible, and I want that same philosophy to pervade what we're doing, even though it may be federal and state dollars that we're dealing with. So with that, I'll stop and see if I left anything out, or if you guys have any
I'll
questions.
start with the commissioners and the other folks here, if we have time, we'll allow other questions, but maybe start with
All right, a couple questions. The committees you were referring to, who appoints the members to those committees?
Our board does, but we will usually seek out the county judge or commissioner court or.
Being how we don't have a vote up there, we're just alternate for Ellis County, or?
Now on the RTC.
Oh, you're doing the Regional Transportation Council?
Now, that's another good point. Can you explain the relationship between RTC and COG? That's something I'm very unclear of.
All right. In the Federal Transportation Act, it calls for these MPOs, which I'm very pleased the federal government says rather than us or the state making all the decisions top down, but rather how the area where these projects are gonna be built, helping to determine where the priorities are. There's never enough dollars to do all you want, so how do you get the most bang for the buck? The Council of Governments was designated by the governor to be the MPO for this area. Now, within the federal law, it does require a board for the MPO. It could be our 13-member executive committee, but we decided we need to broaden that out. So we've got about 44 members on the board. We try to do that as close to one man, one vote, one person, one vote. And that's why there are some shared seats across the area. Those people are assigned by their cities or by their counties. If it's a shared seat, the largest city or county gets to really be in the driver's seat to a certain extent, but we do encourage, why don't you change out those seats as much as possible? And in some cases, we really get a good cooperative approach to that. The people will say, okay, we had it last 2 years, why don't you take it? In other cases, we said, no, we're the biggest and we're gonna keep keep the seat. But the thing that I think is very difficult for people to understand, you don't get a seat in an automatic project to go along with it. That's where our staff really comes into the picture. That's where we have to be very on where are the greatest needs based on the amount of traffic on the roads. How does that figure into safety? And then go back and say, you know, we could build this little segment of road right here, but it's going to tie into a larger road, and that road can't handle, you're just going to move the pinch point from this location up to where it goes into that. So we really need to look at this larger arterial or this larger highway before we start looking at some of the smaller roads. Not always the case, but generally that's what has to be considered. But it's just like we have done with you on several projects. We really try to reach out to where there are the needs as much as possible. But as dollars are getting tighter and tighter, we're going to see more and more people squirming a little bit in those seats, saying, "Oh my God, we need this, and there's only this much money." And we recognize that this is a better for the region, a better project. And when I say that, we have some people say, "I don't care about the region. I just care about my little segment of road. I just care about that you, Collin County, just widen the road through us." Well, you could do that. You could have 5 lanes, 6 lanes here, 10 lanes through Collin County, back down to 4 lanes. Getting commerce, getting goods and services, getting people through. You really haven't done anything. So we really do have to look at how the region. We really do, yeah. I mean, it benefits the whole region.
With the 44 members on the RTC representing, I guess they just represent 10 counties, just like the RTC.
We have 16 counties. They do have 10, and that's a good point. You have to be of a certain size population-wise and a certain density, and that's not us making that rule. That is the federal government rule. So that's why we've got the counties that we do, and don't have some of our counties that are farther out on the outer limits of our boundaries.
So that's what's keeping us out? Is that what's keeping us out from having a seat in our population?
Well, to a certain extent it is. That's why you are sharing a seat. And we got a lot of cities inside the urban area that are having to share.
Yeah, you got citizens of Dallas on a seat over there. Why do the citizens of Dallas have a seat when they've got?
The county does.
Yeah, county has theirs, and then you got one called Citizens of Dallas, and I can't think like citizens of Dallas County. That's kind of
Okay.
It kind of seems unfair to us, I know it's, now you said it's a government regulation that we're
Well,
not
yeah.
allowed to see, I guess.
But let me explain. It is by population. By population, they are entitled to 6 seats. They chose to put 4 elected officials into those seats, and then to put some private citizens into the other 2 seats. So that was not our decision to do that, but they would have the seats by population, and how they decided to assign the seats was up to them.
I think all the counties should have a vote, and then we should eliminate about 40 other people. Well, make it down to about 36 or 35. And you'd eliminate a lot of issues. But,
Well, if you've got some concerns, we'll be happy to sit down and visit with you. I mean, we really, I would love for you to come over and sit in on the, you're gonna see a situation that you really do have people voting on projects that are outside of their areas because they do see the bigger picture of things. And you're not gonna see, well, I got this seat, so I want 5 things that happen in Madison, and I don't give a darn about Carrollton or about Richardson. I mean, it's just, and I know that's hard to believe, but it truly is the way that it works.
I've been to a few of those RTC meetings, and they're pretty interesting. Like I said, they seem to work together very well, and I've witnessed where one project wasn't ready, so the next member said, shift the money from there to there, keep moving forward. And I was really impressed with that. Like I said, they work together very well.
They do wrestle with it. It wouldn't be just add one more county, because the cities are all gonna say, well, I want one more, and you can get to one, we got 90 people sitting around that table, and you just lost control of the whole situation. I mean,
It just seems odd that the county wouldn't have each county have at least one vote, because like you said, coming out here, you see the population growth, and apparently we're not to that point where we justify having, a seat on RTC.
Yeah, it's
according to federal regulations,
right,
I understand now.
it's just that point, but again, we wanna hear the concern, and particularly from the staff. We wanna weigh those into the overall, and we do try to do that. I mean, just like with this Proposition 1, we said every county we've got is gonna get some of this.
That goes to my next question, that 34 million, that's just for this year?
That's over a 4-year.
34 million for the entire 4-year plan?
Let me make sure of that.
no, it's like 94 or 90, something like that, million. Yeah.
I believe that's, I need to check on that break. These are within the first, this is overall, and then the first year.
14, 36.
So you're gonna get about 14 members.
14
Yeah,
million
big in the
this
first
year.
year, yes.
14 million this year and 34.
Yeah, you got the same.
No,
I think
if you
there's
took
extra
two small circles and cut it up like a piece of pie, that's what Tarrant County, Dallas County does. They run all the traffic into Dallas and Fort Worth. If you would put a loop from Waxahachie all the way around, really call it an outer loop, bring it through Kaufman County, Hunt County, take it through Collin County on the north side, and all the way around, you would eliminate a lot of truck traffic from downtown Dallas. We were driving in from Waco from Washington yesterday, and you could look, and you can see the haze when you get to Waxahachie, what it looked like over there.
And that helped with your pollution numbers also.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't hurt anything, that's for darn sure. We had a loop, not quite to the extent that you're talking about.
Well, they started with Loop 12 a long time ago.
Well, yeah, one, you don't get one done overnight. But 2, the plans that we have to be affordable. The federal government wants you to put a project in it, you gotta be able to show that you can active finance. There's not the dollars for that loop. And we'd love to have a good loop. But it'd be a huge amount of money. Now we're at a point where we say we don't want any taxes or fees. And our legislators and congressmen are listening to us. And now we don't want any tolls. So, we're at a loss for, I mean, we're looking for contractors who just wanna build roads and don't wanna be paid for it. If you got any suggestions on where they are,
Well, the
please let us
thing
know.
about outer loop now is, would be the time to secure the right of way.
And we are trying, and then even there, you don't have the dollars to do that, so. And the thing to move the outer loop out is that very thing, the right of way is getting taken up where it was.
Yeah.
But you've also got to show that traffic projections are such that you can warrant that type of loop. And over the long haul, that could certainly be the case, but it's gonna be years away, from that. But, we've really, and then this Proposition 1's a great start, but it is a drop in the bucket compared to what we need, across the state and particularly in our region. So, I'm hopeful the legislature is gonna bring some more dollars, but as the State Department of Transportation says, that'll help us keep and maintain what we have now, which has got to be the highest priority. You've gotta keep what you've got maintained, and then it'll allow for a little bit of new growth and capacity to occur. So it is one of our chief worries about here we are, a region growing like we are, and we're not going to have a transportation system anywhere to really be able to satisfy the demand that's gonna be placed on us.
I guess we've always been faced with that problem, no matter what it's been. I mean, we talked about it before, I even remember when I came back to Vietnam, the 635. Came to Aldi and came to a dead stop. I remember riding on it the first time, I said, yeah, this is a big old highway out here. I said, I can't imagine anybody ever using it. You know, and I mean, it's the same way now. Everybody imagines, well, gee, this is monster enough. Maybe someday we actually will build one that, will be Jetsons or something.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And it will come to a cease. But I mean,
you say that, and there are a lot of regions, including ours, that are trying to look out 30 years in the future, saying, are we gonna be working from home more?
right.
Are we gonna be traveling in different type of conveyances where we don't have the same, and nobody has the answer to that. But we know we're not gonna outbuild our population with transportation. We just can't keep up with it.
Going on to the next item, sure, is, high important stuff, is this 911 money and the system and all. How long has the comptroller been holding our 911 fees and not giving it back to COG so we can use it?
I mean, they keep
For
it in a
years.
trust account.
I understand there's like 171 million statewide that the comptroller is holding. How long has that been going on?
Well, it started really in the late 90s, early 90s, a little bit, but it really started building up, and it has continued to build. It's not really the state comptroller. They receive the money, but it's the legislature who says, this is how much we're going to do.
Trust, and they actually use it last year.
Well, they've done it for the last several years.
Yeah.
When you say we have a balanced budget,
But with somebody else's money.
but we got a lot of dedicated fees that can't be used for general
Because they're doing
purposes.
that with other fees. I
Oh,
know
with
that
the parks,
the parks.
The solid waste fee, I mean,
They have a huge
our
fee
air,
amount sitting over in the waste. Yeah.
all over, and some of our air quality control measures, particularly for diesel vehicles. Yeah, they're holding money. They got $4 to $5 billion worth of those funds that they do not let to be spent, and then counted as revenue to balance the budget. So it's been going on a good while. Now, this last session, we did a little better. This session, with the real talk that they're doing, and we hope they follow through on it, they are gonna try to release some. And for 911, we came out pretty well. If they finally, we came out pretty well based on what the Legislative Budget Board is recommending to them, and what the going to help. Our concern is, okay, this legislative session, so we do well. Can we count on that in successive? And the answer is no, not so long as it is collected at the state level, and then the legislature has the authority, and they certainly do decide, to determine how they're going to appropriate those.
Well, as Mr. Weaver relayed earlier, we're working with our draft senator to, encourage them to draft some legislation, because that's one of the most important things is our 911 money. I mean, first and foremost, is so we can handle our emergencies and our officers and our firefighters. You would think, parks, I can see where it wouldn't be such an urgency, maybe with landfill fees, but have y'all lobbied in any sort of way to, in the last 10 years, get the legislation changed? Have the COGS as a unit got together and tried to encourage the legislatures to?
Well, we are prohibited from lobbying ourselves because we do get state and federal dollars. But no, we've had our elected officials down to the legislature for the last 2 or 3 sessions really concentrating on, we've got to release these funds. Now, by law, these funds can only be used to get to the dispatch center.
Right.
They can't be used for equipment and even in the dispatch center, except for the equipment that's needed to get the call to the center and to the CAD or to the dispatch area. They created a fund for they passed a law to create a fund for communications that could be used for interop, but they never put any money in.
Well, and they can also change legislation to free up the money put into that.
Oh, it could be.
And that's what they're working on, and I hope that they'll get something drafted. Maybe they will, maybe they'll get something that's drafted and go over into the funds so that the county, not just ours, but other counties can do the same thing. They'll be able to have the right to be able to get some grant money.
Can you briefly, if you know, can you briefly describe the equipment at the PSAPs that this money does pay for? I mean, will it pay for like the monitors, the consoles, dispatch console stuff?
Just whatever's coming in and that's what
It can't do that. It does, if you've got routers that make sure the call is coming in, then you got all the equipment that's automatic location information that does feed into the CAD.
But the console.
But yeah, when it gets to the console itself or the radio out of the
I thought that was part of the router would be the console since it does route it to the base units.
It does.
Yeah, so it can pay for that.
Yeah, I can get to that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the actual radio.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, but
itself.
I know about the base, but it can do.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't understand, yeah.
Are the rules any different for a regional district like we are in the COG versus just a county-owned district, like say Henderson County, where the county is their own district?
If they have the dollars, they can
They can buy stuff like dispatch equipment,
They could, yeah.
and they're governed by a board, right?
Right. But they got created prior to 80. And so that's a part of the law that has to be dealt with.
So, through the legislature, we could get removed from y'all's regional 911 and become our own 911.
The legislature determined that's what they're going to do. There's probably going to be other parts of the state that are going to have a John design on that because it could finally disrupt the whole system.
Disrupts the money flow. It disrupts the money flow.
Well, and it does, and then it disrupts, I mean, you've got a lot of rural areas that, are benefiting from some of this. I look at that again the same way. I don't just stay in here. If I get out into one of those rural areas, I just as soon know if I was in a wreck, they'd be able to find me or my car caught on fire, but that's just my own bias about it. I don't know what Henderson County is doing. I do know, based on the COG there, that they've indicated that if they could get a COG district where all the dollars came back, that they think Henderson County would probably want to join that because they don't feel like they've got the dollars to have the equipment that they need. And I'm not going to say that as the gospel, because I don't know that to be fact, but.
Well, I know they just built a new building a few years ago, paid cash for it.
In the very well, yeah.
$500,000 building, and they've got money in the bank, and they've equipped all their PSAPs as up to the point of even including some of this dispatch equipment, from what I understand.
It could be, I don't know if they're at the
They've
same
got
level.
They've got over $1 million in
technology.
the bank. So,
It's just, I mean,
and they're similar to us in, demographics and size and amount of cities and, everything, so. We're just trying to figure out a way that we can keep our money at home, rather than the state holding it. If we can't encourage the legislators to return our money to be used for what it's supposed to be, or maybe we ought to see it becoming our own district so we can keep our money, because am I correct in saying that it goes straight from the phone companies to the districts if you're not in a COG?
So what would happen to the equipment that you guys have furnished for the PSAPs?
I think by reg and law, we would have to pull that. And then you would need to equip yourself with that.
You got any?
There's what, 4 PSAPs in Kaufman County? And PSAP is the answering point.
Public safety.
Yeah, Terrell and
10 total.
10 total.
10 total PSAPs in the county.
Okay.
The 4 major ones, I guess.
10 PSAPs in Kaufman County, what are they?
Each station, 4 stations with us, 2 at the other agencies. The PSAP is,
So
they
you're
count
counting
each
each
station
dispatch
as an answer
station.
point.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, that's what we
I
can.
thought you were counting locations.
The other thing we've been able to do, and I failed to mention this, is we've got it now that if for some reason all of Kaufman County lost service, you're connected to other PSAPs in other counties, you're even connected to our PSAP at our offices, where you can get call takers and dispatchers. So good redundancy, good connectivity from that angle. Yeah, you're getting into your own local politics, and I would encourage you to just take a really close look at it, just really long term, the best.
Just one last question. Do you have any figures as to, I've got figures as how much y'all, or the state has collected from Kaufman County. What I can't seem to get is how much money the PSAPs have received from COG, or how much dollars worth of equipment that the COG has put in the PSAP.
I believe total it's like $1,100,000.
You have to keep that set up, please?
I've got it here too.
Right, yeah, $1,108,000.
Yeah.
And I guess the point of this $1,000,008, I think, excuse me, might have been trying to ask, when I do know it went to four regions, who handed it?
That's Kaufman County, and that's all 10 PSAPs, exactly what they provide us.
And went and divided up into 4, basically, payments, wasn't it? I mean, was it?
No, that is not in payments, that's
I
what
mean,
they're
but I
supplying
meant in the
for.
4 divisions in total money, like one of them Terrell, and then part of it went to Kaufman City, and then the sheriff's department.
Right,
That's where all.
that's the whole combined,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what I'm thinking.
All the PSAPs in the county,
Right.
that's what they
And
spend.
that's what it all went for, just PSAPs only.
Yes, sir, all equipment and everything, yes.
But you're not physically seeing that money, that's what they're
No,
spending.
no, I know,
Paying
I'm
your
just
system.
saying, I'm just trying to explain exactly where it went. I already know that, I'm just.
Yeah, I think what we've shown the last couple of years is you brought in about $1.5 million and did about $1.8 million.
Right.
That, if you've gotta have technicians, you've gotta have a lot of support staff to keep this thing up and going, so you have to figure your total all-in cost and take a look at it. The impression that I have in talking with the commission is, I hate to say this out loud, but that Collin County, a couple of the smaller counties, to be able to have the system that they've got today because of their size and the fact that they're a member of our district. You know, they bring a lot of money to the table.
Dallas County has their own.
Yeah, they were ahead of 87 in Tarrant County.
Well, those two, the big county.
Well, excuse me, Denton and Tarrant County do have their own, so they got established. Dallas had a lot of home rule cities that were larger than 50,000 that have their own today. We actually serve 4 smaller cities in Dallas through our system.
Mike, at one time, there's been discussion at COG about the COG, the North Central Texas Council of COG, forming its own 911 district. Because evidently the folks down around Austin did that last year. Is that something that's still being?
We have legislation over at the Ledge Council that has not been finalized that would authorize our counties, cities to vote for us to become a district to where we could get all of our dollars back. There's a little hesitancy in Collin County to do that, and I think a lot of it has to do with just forming a district, and they've got a lot of water districts and municipal utility districts that influences their decision on do we want another district to be created. The fact of the matter is, we are a district today. So we wouldn't be creating another district. What we'd be doing is bringing all of our dollars back home. And rather than having to go through another body to get appropriations and to live with their policies, we would create a board that would have all the counties on the board to help make the decisions for how those dollars are spent. So that's just something we'll have to, see how the legislation comes out. But for me, it would be a perfect way to keep a good amount of dollars in the system, but under local control and rolling directly.
Then you get to designate how you want to use it.
That'd be the best scenario alone.
So we'll just have to see how that finally turns out.
So these other cities that are kind of out, you say, is that what you're saying, that they've got their own deal going right now, some of the cities? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, I think as a group, making their own district and bringing the money straight here instead of going through the console.
Maybe I'm trying to think what you might have heard. What I was saying, in order for that district to be created, each county and each city within that county that we're now serving would have to vote to create a district.
So in other words, in Kaufman County, the other PSAP will have to vote on it as well.
Yeah, any of your cities would have to vote. The legislation.
Just within Kaufman.
Yeah. All the legislation I have seen has been a situation, I don't know how you're to be designed, but I don't think you're gonna get a piece of legislation out that says a county, without the consideration of their cities, can become a district and then just tell their cities, this is how it is. Most of the legislation I've seen says you've gotta get everybody at the table and with the approval to do so. And that's what they're doing with this legislation. That's what they did in Austin, or with the capital.
Other questions from the court?
Yeah, I think that kind of clears it up.
Okay.
If we decide to do something with this district here, we really need to have our city sign on board.
I would, yeah,
Well, you can't do it unless, I mean, that's just what it is.
All right. Anybody, have a question from the audience that they're unclear on spectatorship? All right, we'll take about Jimmy.
Comment.
Yeah.
On the disbursement of those funds from the 911, there is some language in here about using that money for volunteer fire departments for communication. I did read that.
There is, and they do appropriate some dollars out of that for the volunteer fire departments.
Which would be a big impact on us. We have a lot of volunteer.
Oh, we do every,
And handheld radios
Yeah.
that we could fund fund some of that from the 911. I know there is language about that.
It's,
That's also funded through, state, Forest Service, they get that funds and they
that's what
disperse.
they say.
They disperse them funds.
We don't get that,
And they do that quite a bit right now. I mean, if you talk to all the local volunteer fire departments, they get tons of money from them.
but it is allowed.
Just one more revenue source that we could use to offset some of the costs of going to the 700 system. Just one more advantage.
It would be, if we had a regional district, though, you've got a lot of volunteer fire departments scattered through
Yeah.
those counties that we serve. There's a huge amount. I'll just put it this way, I don't think any of these funds are ever gonna get you to the point that you don't have to pay something for your radio system out of your own local tax. It's just,
Yeah, we know
it's just
that.
too expensive.
It's just an expensive
It is,
proposition to do.
very, very much so. But yeah, they do take some of the funds, it does go to the Texas Forest Service, and then they apportion those out to the best of their ability. There's never enough.
Does that go to the ESDs or straight to the?
No, that goes to the fire department. We apply for them. If you'll look like, we do a bunch of, training at Texas A&M, you get all the vouchers for all them. You do grants for trucks. I know tons of fire departments in our county that's got grants for the Forest Service for trucks. And they've done some communication. So the fire departments are getting a lot out of the Texas Forest Service, and we're always continuing doing the grant.
I wonder, because I've never seen it on the ESD's financial statement.
No, that goes to the fire department. Fire department, it don't go to the ESD.
And I don't know about engines, they certainly do a lot of brush trucks.
Tons of brush trucks, yes,
And water tank.
yes, some tenders.
Tankers.
Okay, we'll take about a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and wrap up. Mike, thank you very much for being on.
Thank you.
It's kind of, this third item, I just put on there, just kind of more or less as an update. Obviously, there's no, we're not taking action on any of these items today, but as everybody is aware, we've been working pretty hard, or several people have been working very hard over the last several weeks and days, discussing with various entities across the county about their intent participating with us on the regional 911 center. And I know I have received some calls, actually a lot of calls, and I've received also some emails, and I've got promises of letters that will be coming in prior to Monday about their interest in participating in our 911 center as far as having an agreement with it. There is some discussion, and John, I may ask you to jump in here, and there is some discussion that I have heard about the fact that well, let me just say this. There are some that have indicated that we did not have a financing method in the original RFP that went out and that was received back in. But as part of the RFP that was developed by Jack and his crew in the committee that we asked them to put in there a method of financing to give us a bid on what they would finance the package for. And that was done, and I believe every one of the packages that we got back, Jack, did have a method of financing in.
That's correct. I believe Harris's was, I think, 10 years at 3.49%.
Okay. But I believe you had the discussion with them, and I don't know who else was involved. I know that I asked you to let them know that all the bidders know that if we could find a cheaper route, cheaper money, I guess is a better way to do it, that we would secure our own financing, and every one of them were agreeable with that. They make their money on the selling of the equipment. So just to let everybody know, there was a method of financing that came back from Harris Communications. It was in the best and final offer, and for just to clarify that matter, I want everybody to have the same information. And because I think there may have been some miscommunication or maybe some misunderstanding about that. Have I said anything that's not correct?
No, that is correct.
Okay.
You know, they provided a
everybody provided a finance package with the proposal.
Right.
And during the best and final offer, prices were reduced. I'm not sure they may have reduced the rate slightly, but they had a package for us to finance this product for 10 years at that rate.
And what has been made public when we opened those bids up last week or whenever it was, what has been made public is American National Bank of Texas has presented an interest rate of 2.05%. And those bonds will be callable, which means they can be paid off early should we be able to do that at any time after the first year, after the 2016 year. So by doing that, it saved us approximately how much? About $90,000 a year, as compared to what the low bidder was giving. They don't make their money, well, they probably do make some money, but they're more into selling equipment than doing financing, so that's the reason we asked for that. The other issue I want to try to clear up, and John, this may be where I have to have your help. We have violated no laws. We have not entered into an interlocal agreement with anybody at this point in time. And there's some discussion about how that actually will work. All of the equipment, first, go back to the very beginning. The building was a gift to us by the Adjutant General, by the Texas National Guard. It was given to Kaufman County because the county originally gave the land to the Guard back in the 50s when they built a bunch of these National Guard armories. There were about 17, I believe, that the state gave back to the various entities around the county. So that was a gift to Kaufman County, but it was a gift to all of us as well. We're the county, we're in a county building, but we all make up Kaufman County, those of us that live in the county. The second thing, the money that we have spent to remodel the interior of that facility, if you've been in it, you will see that, came from the savings we had whenever we refinanced some bonds back in 2012. We couldn't do it in 2011 because we were in the red, and we were not able to even get anybody to talk to us about refinancing bonds. Is that correct,
Yes.
Karen?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So we did turn around, and this was everybody working together as a group, as a court, and all the elected officials joined together and helped us get out of red. We went from 1.6 million in the red to about 1.1, 1.2 million in the black, and we've remained there ever since. So the money that was saved by refinancing those bonds was used by a vote, was voted on by the court at that time, was used to renovate and the interior of the existing building that is whatever it's going to be called, but the old Armory building. So we have not asked the cities for any participation, or we're asking them for participation, but we've not spent one city penny that I'm aware of. That anybody have anything different than that? Karen, do you know of any city money that we've spent? No. So there are some people that are going around to say we've already violated the law because we spent city money and we didn't have an interlocal agreement in place. That is not true. Now, obviously, we want the cities to participate, and we are respectfully asking them to do that. It's my understanding that many of them will be here Monday, or they will send a letter of intent. Commissioner, I think that's what you indicated you would like to see.
I'd rather see a contract.
Well, I think you said a letter of intent.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I believe that's what you said. I want to make sure I'm correct on that.
I said I'd rather see a contract, but at least a letter of intent would be better than nothing.
So they're working on that now, even as we speak. How many of those we receive, I don't know, but I know that I hopefully will receive all of them. The problem is that some of the cities don't have a meeting, and so between now and the time we meet Monday, but we're getting letters of interest and letters of saying they're going to join. This this is our intent, this is what we're going to do. So that's kind of where we are on that. And John, I don't know where we are on the interlocal agreement, if there will be, whatever we call it, an interlocal agreement. It's not like building a road. I don't think we have to have a project agreement or something, but I may be wrong on that. So you kind of have cleared that up if you can.
No, I was gonna address another facet
Okay.
of the, you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, and I just kind of wanted people to know where we are in that process, because a lot of people have great interest in this, and there is a lot of discussion going on across the county, and you know, I think all of us may have a different opinion about what might have been the best way and to go about it, and I, you know, if I made a mistake, I'm sorry. It was with well intent, just because I want to start getting this project moved forward. We've spent a lot of money on the building, and I just hate for it to sit there. Plus, we're committed to several, $200,000 or $300,000 with the existing vendor that we've signed a contract with. So, John, I'll let you take over.
I had a lengthy conversation with Jim Allison the other day about this subject. Now, there's a lot we didn't discuss, but the pertinent things, I think, were to address some questions that were brought forward by Commissioner Phillips and probably also Commissioner Allen, because they were not present, or they were not present as commissioners at the meeting in December when the vote was taken, and how your commissioners dealing with this facet of it. And the several things that I told Jim Allison, because I want him to be as clear and have as much information as possible, is that a vote was taken, the court has changed the composition, the court has changed. It's a contract that perhaps would not have passed today, or maybe would not have passed with the same terms today, but be that as it may, that was one thing. That was, you know, kind of point one. Point two was, at the time that it was up for consideration, there wasn't a line item in the budget for it, and his observation, which I agree with, and is a concern of the auditor as well, is that until the budget is amended, she can't lawfully pay any claim related to this. So if the court votes at some point this next week or afterwards to fund this contract, and however it decides to fund the contract, it will need to, as part of that motion, amend the budget to reflect that there's an additional, whatever it is it $3.6, $3.7 million obligation, that however it's going to be spread out. So there's that, and until the budget's amended, then she can't pay it, so that needs to be done too. And so what's the best price, or the best, that's a decision for you guys to make. I can't do that. The question that you had asked, Commissioner Phillips, was can we go back and we vote on something that's voted on before? The short answer to that is you can review it, you can vote on it if you're desire to vote on it, and then the decision is going to be guided by is there any repercussion to negating that? Is there any consequence to it? And that, as it turns out, from when it was decided to this date, there have been substantial costs that have been incurred by the vendor. It's my understanding from, I think, the judge or from Bruce, that there was part of the contract they were going to begin work immediately, they being Harris. And so there are costs connected with this for which they would seek recovery. I would imagine if we did not honor the terms of that contract, so there is a liability associated with that. And then what's the best way to do it? I don't know that. That's a decision for y'all to make of funding it. But it is not, and Jim agrees with this, it's not a notice proposition to say, okay, we're going to cancel the contract and start all over. You could decide to do that. Most likely Harris would see specific performance requirements for the contract, and they would probably have a very good plan.
But Jim Allison also talked to me, asking the same thing, and he said that, to me, that it's possible that they could try to sue, that it's probably not logical that they could collect because of certain things. I don't remember all the statutes that he told me, but there was a lot of them. He said that it wouldn't be in their best interest to even try that, but, you know, everything's possible. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be both contract, that's not what we're doing here. It's that
No, I'm not
two of
saying
us,
you-
two of
I'm not
us
saying
weren't
you-
part of
I'm not
it.
doing it. I'm saying
Yeah, and
there's-
two of us weren't
maybe
part of
close
it.
to system.
And we wish they would have done their funding or whatever they did, we wish they'd have done it last year.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to deal with it, because it's an issue now that we put on the agenda, to make a tax. And so we're gonna issue bonds and create a tax. I know it's not much.
The new agenda posting does not have that in there.
Do what?
The new agenda posting for Monday, Tom Holland changed the language up on that. He got rid of the AG's office, and so
Said that we
the
could,
new agenda posting, if you look at it carefully, does not have that in there.
well, and that's what got me interested in it really quick, is to say that, okay, I'm a new commissioner, and the first thing you want me to do is vote in a new tax. I'm not voting in a new tax. You know, that's what, I want the police department, my own son's a policeman. I want them to have the best things money can buy.
Amen.
There is no question about this. There is, you know, that, I'm the most pro-police person there is. But I won't do it at the expense of creating new taxes. We need to budget our money, and we need to figure it out. And if the jail, you know, if we're gonna make contracts, we're gonna receive $1 million a year, then I'd like to see the money go back into the jail. And I'd like to see the money go back into the police officers, and maybe extend their raises and figure out a way that our patrol officers can make more money, and we can hang on to them longer and not have this big cost of turnover all the constant time. You know, we're just beating ourselves against the wall. You don't wanna do that. The more turnover we have, the more cost associated with it.
And let me say this, that it's good if that is taken out of the agenda posting, but the budget will still need to be amended to reflect that this is the additional cost.
Right.
And that may cause the budget to go from positive to negative.
Right.
In the grand scheme of things, and as I told
Yeah, and
Commissioner Rosales, I said that what question if I was you, or if I was Commissioner Allen, is, hey, why wasn't this brought up before the budget year?
right.
Not so much that you can't make a hard decision now, but it's kind of.
In the planning test, it should be done.
It's.
Right, it
yeah,
should have been done before the budget
It
year.
probably came out before December.
Right. It should
Well,
have.
and the reason it was not, if you remember, we had a capital murder trial going on. And many of the people that were involved in that capital murder trial were the same people that were working on this. That's not an excuse, that's just the facts, and I wish it had been, I wish it had occurred earlier. I'm sorry, we started working on this back 3.5 years ago. So it's been no secret that we were planning on doing this, but it got waylaid because of the fact that our army was turned into a command post, you know, during the investigation. And it should have been that. I'm not making any excuse about that. But it is what it is, and Monday we'll have the opportunity to see if we want to move forward with it or not. And I think we all need to understand the consequences both ways. If we do it, or we don't do it, I think we just need to be prepared for whatever those consequences are. It's never been my intention for this to turn into a controversial thing, but there are so many stories that are out there, and you know, we deal with Facebook and all that kind of stuff now, and people just say horrible things on that, and you know, some of the time, not all the time, but some of the time they have no validity to them whatsoever. But my feeling throughout all of this has been we've got an antiquated system. It needs to be replaced. We've got public safety officers firefighters, first responders, whatever, we need to be able to protect them. And I know everybody around this table agrees with that. I don't think there's any other way to do that. But to do that, I think we have to, it's not gonna get any cheaper, I don't think, tonight, but that's kind of where it is, so. Ronnie, this is, I'll let you talk, but we're fixing to get out of here.
Thank you, yes. You're giving a great historical perspective. And walk me through the decisions to spend the first $1.4 million, $1.5 million on the Armory building versus the first dollars being spent on the most pressing equipment needs, since so many of us weren't here
Actually,
then.
I thought I had just done that, but let me repeat. We were given the Armory building as a free gift by the Adjutant General's Office of the Texas National Guard. That occurred sometime in 2011, about the middle of 2011. My first thought was, well, what are we going to do with this building? And the sheriff came forward and met with me privately and said, we really need to start thinking about forming a regional 911 center that would handle all of the 911 calls within our county and possibly other counties or other institutions. So we started looking at that. We hired a company called Mission Critical, who are consultants for projects like this, to come in and look at the Armory and to help us look at some of the what their recommendations would be. And they gave us a big thick binder of information which we utilized. At that point in time, the county was in the financial shape that we could refinance some bonds, and we chose to use that money. The court at that time, because I don't think there's anybody on the court now that was on there other than me, the court at that time chose to move forward with hiring an architect and designing the interior of that building. And so that's when that started. Now, it did not get started until this year, 14, I think, March of 14. The plans were started. But again, we have a lot of stuff going on. And that's not an excuse. I mean, again, that's just a fact. I wished it had been done, a year ago, but it was not, Tim.
Can I add to that? Since 2013, we had to do a mandate. You remember we had a narrow band.
Right.
The county spent some money to buy about $80,000 worth of VHF repeaters. That's when we got into the new tower site and been using it ever since. Then as we were trying to focus on how we were going to better the system, okay? Chief and I both discussed it well before that even got approved. When that started kind of rolling, we said, why are we going to pay to have a radio system installed at the old place and then have to repay to move it? So we kind of put that on hold. We kind of backed off the radio deal, waiting on this project with the regional center, because that was another plan running, like you said. So this is not new that we just popped up the radio. So we've been trying to do something with this radio system. Mr. Dellner can vouch that. He had to deal with it. So I don't want y'all thinking we just popped up another project. Our guys, I'm down to 2 consoles in the dispatch center.
2 out of how many?
2 out of 4. So when those 2 go down, that could happen tomorrow. I put mobile radios that go on police cars around there. So when it does go down, we've got a means to communicate with our guys. Okay? So we need the system, and I hate seeing it jammed up. Does that make sense? We've been working on this for a pretty good long time. So I'd like for you guys to consider our safety with our guys. We're talking about taxing, my importance is make sure we got means to talk to our guys in the event we have emergencies. We had to move to the East Texas side. When we were at the old tower, the generator went right. Every time electricity go off, we wouldn't have a radio. So we finally got means to get into that tower. We hadn't had that issue any longer, so it makes sense. It's not new that we're trying to get something better for our guys. So.
Ronnie, did that answer your question?
Well, I appreciate Mr. Moore. I appreciate his input, but it still is. And I understand it's a long-term project, but this isn't second guessing. But, I think it's important that we continue to be methodical and thoughtful through this, the way the prior courts have been, where they determined that the first need was to remodel a building that, my speculation is everybody agreed, okay, our equipment is good enough for now. let's spend money on a building. So if I'm just searching in my own heart for what has suddenly made the equipment the big emergency. You know, again, everybody needs it, want to be thoughtful with it, and I understand the marginal cost of having to move the equipment later, but, you know, I think everybody's asking this current court to buy into a decision train, and I believe that they're just trying to get comfortable. All of us are, you know, that you know, how we move forward is going to be well thought out, and it's going to be ultimately effective and low cost for the county.
One thing that you did not mention, and I think you are second guessing, I would tell you that. I know you didn't intend to, but in my opinion, you did. The one thing that you did not mention is the safety of our public safety officers. And I've had people say, oh, y'all are just making that up, that's an emotional plea. That is not an emotional plea. I can promise you, if you want me to have a few people call you, I can do that. In fact, there are hundreds of people around this county that are watching us very carefully and the decision we make. And everybody's gonna have the right to make their decision, and we'll just see where that goes. That's how democracy works. If we vote not to move forward and leave the building empty out there, that's good. We'll just stay with what we got and buy some more handheld units, maybe spend a couple $100,000 to buy another console, but that's still not gonna get us to the next level. Still not gonna get us to the high frequency that we need. John?
I just wanted to, Rebecca reminded me that we do have interlocal forms for agreements with the city. They're not signed by the city, I'm not representing that, but we do have the forms already. They've been provided by the city.
I want to ask, I've already asked one member today, the first, what's it called, first med?
First responders.
The new system that's coming, the government's put up $7 million.
System?
First net.
How is this gonna interact with that?
How's it, you know, because I know in 5 months it's gonna be up and running in Brazos County. And, you know, it's all now time, you know, response, so that instantly your phone has it, like in Boston when it blew up. And none of their information will go down because they have their own towers. Everything's all internet together, and they can pull it up and they can see what the press is showing, the bomb going off, or if they have people there with body cams, they'll instantly see exactly what's happening in that situation, so the responders are coming into it, know what's happening. You know, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, this is good stuff. I mean, if this can happen, you know, and that's what they're doing. Now, I do know that the first net is when it starts running in 5 months in Brazos County, it's not going to have the radio on. But their ever intention is to put the radio on. In other words, it's all going to be in one system. And now this is Big Brother. The Fed's putting the money into this and starting the program. I don't know when it could possibly come to Kaufman. It might be 2 years. It might be.
I can answer a little bit about FirstNet.
Yeah.
It was envisioned as a broadband network. If you think about the term broadband, that's specific to computers and phones right now.
Right.
And their original intention was to have a nationwide cell phone system that only first responders and emergency personnel could access.
Yeah,
that's
really
what started
now. Yeah, they're really doing it.
And they since realized that we can put computers and do the things that you're speaking of. And that's where they're moving now. Down the road, the radio systems, which are becoming more computer-oriented, let's say, will be able to merge into it. But from the information I've seen, we're talking probably 10, 15, 20 years down the road before you can merge the radios into that
For
system.
some reason, everybody that with that FirstNet organization is down there this week, I talked to them, they don't think it's near that long. But
well, it may not be.
Yeah, and I'm just asking if y'all know about it, and if it's, you know, if you look into it to see where our association is gonna be in that deal. That's kind of curious.
So the only way we can really move forward with that is if we have a truly IP-based radio system.
Right, oh, no, I'm just asking.
As we migrate to the Harris system,
Yeah.
you know, instead of the old analog where it's just a sine wave, we're putting
Oh, no,
data
they don't
across
have
that
anything to do
IP
with this.
network, the same way they're doing in Brazos, because Brazos already did that.
Right.
And they were running a simulcast with IP protocol on the network, they were able to merge with that. If we chose not to do that, we couldn't even take advantage of that.
Jimmy?
Well, several things, but I currently use that system on my trucks now. I have for a couple of years. I've transitioned throughout the evolution of technology, and that's the same kind of system I currently use. But beyond that, I'm not part of Facebook, so I don't get into the gossip circle what goes on in politics. But I went out and did my own research and went to other communities, other leaders. And first off, I want to make sure that the right message gets brought out. What I've seen happen in the last couple of weeks, to me, is just good government, period. It's not bickering, it's not arguing. A little horse here. It's not bickering, it's not arguing, it's just taking care of business. And I've heard the right questions come up. And after talking to some of these other community leaders, they agree with what's taking place. I even question the wisdom of the old Guard Army, and they feel that was a good decision. They feel that the 700 system is a premium system, and going to it is something that all of them would love to be involved in. And you mentioned other counties and other cities, and they are out there. They told me they would like to be part of it. I think today, where we're going to be on Monday, is getting the paperwork done in your local agreements, which I said that was a very...
Provided we can get here Monday in the winter too.
Well, that's true, I've got to cancel meetings too. But getting those interlocal agreements, everybody that I talked to agreed that was a very important component. And not just for now, but primarily for the future. Because as more cities join into the system, they're going to have to realize they're going to be paying for some of this operational cost. Now, it sounds like most of the questions that came up, we just got to get some things like in writing to make sure that if we have another commissioner's court, they can go back and say, this is what we did, and this is why you guys are going to be required to help pay for it. And I'm not criticizing anything at all, what you did, or what the county did, or the direction the county's going with this system. And I want to make sure I give praise to the Commissioner's Court to make sure that they get good recognition for the work they're doing, because they're doing the right thing. This is truly just good government. That's all it is. It's not arguing, it's not bickering, it's the way it's supposed to be done.
As long as everybody has the same set of facts.
That's why I went out to get my own facts to make sure.
I appreciate you doing that.
Now, what are we getting into? Is this a good system? Is it future? Can we add on to it? Can the rest of the communities be part of it? And they can. We've got other cities that are already there. Terrell and Forney, for example, they're good examples. Forney especially. There was another example that I used, Duncanville, Cedar Hill. They use a regional dispatch center, just exactly what we're trying to accomplish.
We went there and studied that.
So, it's a good example.
I understand what you're saying.
But it seems like a lot of what's going on is, it's probably rumor and innuendo.
A lot of it is.
And the funding part, we've realized we've got additional funds. I don't like the idea of taxes either. I don't think that ad valorem tax should have ever been used. I think that now we've got funds coming in, we can write the language to use that additional money to fund these bonds, which that's a good deal. I mean, if I was out there wanting to borrow $3.6 million at 2%, I'd jump on it. I'd borrow it now just to reinvest it. But, it's a good deal. And when you look at it, 2% on $3 million, $3.5 million, is good money. That's good for anybody.
One
But
more.
anyway, I just want to finish up, but I think everything that's going on is what is expected by the citizens, and it's just good government.
Well, nobody said a democracy was perfect,
No, it's like making sausage. You don't know what goes into it, but you hope it tastes good when you get it cooked.
Right, but it's far ahead of whatever's in second place.
Yeah.
So I
You
think
don't know
we have
what
to remember that. Curtis, you represent the city of Kaufman, and I know you've had some discussions with some of your
Well, I
folks.
didn't plan on saying anything, Judge. I just want to say that those comments are right on target. And to me, and I've been working on this for the past day or so on my thoughts, it's really two different issues. The issue is whether you're going to increase the technology of your dispatching system. And I think that's the only issue that you're really facing today. If you decide to upgrade this technology, to do with your decision today, because that'll all be done at no tax increase at all. It'll just be done. For the future marching on, whether we choose to participate in your sophisticated dispatching system can be the local choice. And so Kaufman says, no, we don't want to participate. You'll still have your equipment. You'll still have to do what you're doing to provide countywide digital communications which will be open to everybody. If we say no, it's not going to affect you at all. Of course, we are going to say yes because you're going to save us a lot of money.
How much money we're going to save the city?
You're going to save every city a lot of money. The only city you're not going to save money are the ones that are getting it for free now. And I hope the next decision you make after you decide to fund the system is that there's no more free ride on dispatch services. We all pay our way for dispatching services. I think those issues are very separate.
Okay. One more comment.
The,
and then we'll get out of here.
The city the size of Kaufman, for example, I heard this number yesterday, they budget $500,000 in a very close city just for their 911 dispatch center. So it's $500,000 that they budget just to do that job. So a city the size of Terrell, and I'm talking about Seagoville, I think they're about the same size as Terrell. But Seagoville uses $500,000 in their budget to keep that system going. So that's a good example of what some of these cities probably already put out and expand, that they could cut that cost just by piggybacking with the county system. Those are the numbers I heard.
Okay. All right.
I got one question. Yesterday when we was in that meeting with Tom, Paul, did he say that the ESDs also could fund money to this project?
I believe he did, if they've got
Well,
money.
I
they
thought
want
I
to
understood
contribute.
him to say,
Most of them don't have the money.
Yeah. There's been some discussion that some of them might help out the portable radios, for the fire department.
right, but they did say that.
Well, unless there's some grants that may be out there.
I don't know, I didn't see the contract, I don't have.
Well, I think most of our EDCs aren't up to whatever their taxation level is.
What we committed to do is buy the mobile units for their trucks and vehicles.
Also, more than one, I just thought you didn't one from.
No, each volunteer fire department will have.
Each one for each truck.
Yeah, and then, but we've not committed to buying their handheld units, and that may be where the ESPs come in. Yeah, but we understand there may be some grants that may be available that because of what we're doing, trying to get everybody on the same frequency, that those grants might be available for the fire departments too. No, that's a good question. I just wanted to have this little discussion today, and whatever happens Monday will happen, and we're going to survive over it. We've got many other projects we need to be working on, not the least of which is another emergency service, and that's our ambulance service that we've got to get on board with and try to do an interim thing on that. And we've just got a lot of other things. I'm ready to move on from this. I will accept, I will have no choice but to accept whatever the court decides. But I just wanted us to have everybody to have somewhat of the same information. And anything that you can do to help spread that around, I think would be very helpful for all of us. And Jack, go ahead.
I'd just like to add one thing. We can talk about maybe the cost later on is going to go up. Obviously, it's going to go up, but I want the court to realize that this package that Harris put together, they missed some things. They missed the sites. They didn't go out there, they did their testing, but they didn't make a site visit. They didn't realize that there was not structures out there for this equipment, air conditioning, heating, that sort of thing, protecting the equipment from the elements. So they had come back and they weren't prepared to pay the extra money. The committee more or less told them, here's the deal. If you don't do it for the price you quoted, this all goes away. If you want to make Harris a site where everybody wants to show you what you do, to the world, then you gonna give in on the price. They came back and included all this stuff, substantial number of what was included in their original bid. They held the price, so if we don't do it this time, it's gonna go up.
Yeah, and they had, I believe they got approval for the site in Kaufman and in, Elmo. Those have been kind of our two areas where we've been, and by the way, the 98% coverage, Kevin, on this is not 98% of the mobile units or the dispatch, it's 98% of the handheld units.
No, 98 mobile and 97 handheld.
Okay, I was misinformed. Okay, another good point. Okay. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Judge Wood, I wanted to say something, I know y'all trying to get out of here, but, when
We're
you
gonna get
walk-
fined if we don't get the lines.
Okay, I know. Y'all were talking about, you went through the deficit savings. When I came on board, I had to finish 2011's audit and get the general ledger balance to the trial balance. I was talked to about going and seeing if I could refinance some bonds. I've been in finance for 40 years. I had a lot of connections and networking that I've done. Nobody would finance this county because of 1.6 million deficit. I think those departments worked very good together and got it back up. Not only did they cover that deficit, they come back up 1.4, 1.1, whatever it was. 16 audit findings. 2.5 years, we brought it down to 2 findings. And it's because of good decisions that Commissioners Court backed us up to get a purchasing policy, credit card policy, and help the auditor get the things that I needed with the software to get things accounted for. Don't forget that. Y'all done some good jobs. Y'all turned things around.
That exact example right there is the reason we should have everything in writing, so we know where we're going with every expenditure, every obligation. Hopefully Harris won't come back and say, oh, by the way, we forgot this tower and we're gonna add this extra equipment on there. They won't get paid.
They won't get paid, it's in the contract.
Yeah, it is. I read that.
All right, thank you very much.
I can't believe she